Jim Jordan is laying out the sweeping agenda for judicial reform, which I don't think could happen to a better group of people. We'll talk about that here in a second. But I also want to talk about the NPR CEO that was called up to the House to testify on a few things yesterday. Stu, you want to take us through this?
Yeah, I'd like to talk about it as well, because it was an interesting hearing. First of all, good fundamental reason the hearing was happening was, hey, maybe we shouldn't be paying a bunch of money for left-wing propaganda at NPR and PBS. And I think I think there's absolutely no reason for that to be occurring. I don't know what country we are. I understand, the UK has the BBC. They've got Pravda going on. I don't know why we need one of those. So I'm totally with this, and I don't think it should happen. However, even if it was doing an actual good job, I would think it was a bad idea. They are not, however, doing a good job. And they are led by, NPR is led by someone named Katherine Maher. She is she's, I would say, a leftist. She has some really extreme views. We've covered some of them before, but never really had her answer for them. Part of what happened here is that process. And one of the big complaints about NPR in particular was they were probably, and you tell me if I'm wrong on this, Glenn, the worst offender when it came to the Hunter Biden laptop scandal.
Oh, yeah. They said on day one, we will not cover conspiracy theories.
Yeah.
That is not worth the time for us to cover for the American people.
Really bad. They didn't give
Very
it. They
bad.
just absolutely dismissed it with no evidence, because obviously the story was true. They absolutely dismissed the story right before the election, assuming it was some sort of right-wing conspiracy.
Almost on day one.
Yeah. It did not turn out to be a right-wing conspiracy. It did turn out to be a conspiracy between Hunter Biden and a bunch of hookers. But that's a different situation. So this is Katherine Maher trying to answer about for some of the poor showings of journalism that they've produced over the past couple of years. Listen.
Can we expect that you will bring the same lack of reverence for truth to your management of NPR?
Thank you, Congressman. First of all, I do want to say that NPR acknowledges that we were mistaken in failing to cover the Hunter Biden laptop story more aggressively and sooner. Our current editorial leadership.
Wuhan?
We recognize that we were reporting at the time, but we acknowledge that the new CIA evidence is worthy of coverage and have covered it.
What have you done to clean up the bias before? You mentioned I wasn't there for that. What are you doing to clean up and make sure that we have
Absolutely. Thank you,
unbiased?
Congressman. As I mentioned, I came in May. Mr. Berliner published his story 2 weeks into my tenure regarding stories that had happened prior. I wish that I had had the opportunity to speak with Mr. Berliner. I would have loved to have had him engage and come back to us with some suggestions as to what we could do editorially in order to address what he perceived as bias.
So I want to point out who she is here for just a second. A lot of people don't know that I'm a painter, and I gave up painting because of demoralizing pain in my hands. I was losing hope. If pain keeps you from really living, I urge you to do what I did. Try Relief Factor. Relief Factor is a 100% drug-free supplement developed by doctors. It's safe to take every day, and it has helped me and so many others. You can try their 3-week quick start right now, $19.95 at relieffactor.com. Chris Rufo has pointed out her, shall we say, interesting work history. Before NPR, she was employed by the U.S. State Department and the National Democratic Alliance, or Democratic Institute. The NDI is one of the main branches of the National Endowment for Democracy. And when was she there? During the Arab Spring. What were they doing? Promoting the Arab Spring. Remember, it was the NED and the U.S. government strategy during the Arab Spring. They were training youth movements on how to influence public opinion through mass media and ultimately organize in the streets and then topple the regime. Okay? Chris Rufo has said that, I should rephrase it, he all but called her a CIA agent, okay? Also, she was with Wikimedia, which is Wikipedia. And when she got there, they changed a little bit and started controlling information. And then she's now the head of NPR. and we're supposed to be comfortable with this. She's part of this whole deep state revolutionary thing that is exactly what we told you is, I think, what the JFK files are showing us. They're showing us the pattern. This is what happened in the 60s. This is what's happening right now. It's the same story. And she's right at the head of it.
Yeah, and sometimes it's difficult, Glenn, when you look at someone's resume to be able to determine, who the person is, right? Like you might work at an organization that could disagree with you. You might be, like there's a lot of people who worked at X and Twitter that we now know were really upset with what Twitter was doing at that time. We consider them kind of a left-wing social media network, and at the time there were people inside who were really upset about that. We learn about those things later. This particular case, though, not a good example of that at all.
Yeah. Let me just point out, too, she is currently on the board of Signal.
Okay. Yeah, it's a newsworthy addition.
Newsworthy thing to point out there. Okay.
And again, you could even say that someone could be someone who's a left-leaning person, right, who is controlled of NPR. They've been left-wing forever. But you could be a left-leaning news person and okay, like that could be something that could work. Obviously, everyone has an opinion, right? Not everyone's. Yeah. Everyone has some opinion on news stories. This particular person, however, Katherine Maher, has a fascinating history. And what she has done is not just work in these places and not just have influence in these stories that keep coming up over and over again, but explicitly state her crazy positions over and over and over and over again on Twitter, on X. So she had to know this stuff was coming, but she was asked by Brandon Gill, he's a congressman from Texas, about some of her previous tweets, and it is just absolute gold.
Do you believe that America is addicted to white supremacy?
I believe that I tweeted that, and as I've said earlier, I believe much of my thinking has evolved over the last half decade.
It has evolved. Why did you tweet that?
I don't recall the exact context, sir, so I wouldn't be able to say.
Okay. Do you believe that America believes in black plunder and white democracy?
I don't believe that, sir.
You tweeted that in reference to a book you were reading at the time, apparently, The Case for Reparations.
I don't think I've ever read that book, sir.
You tweeted about it. You said you took a day off to fully read The Case for Reparations. You put that on Twitter in January of 2020.
Apologies, I don't recall that I did.
Okay.
No doubt that your tweet there is correct, but I don't recall that.
Okay, stop.
So good.
Okay, so the question there is she was she just lying about reading that? And if she was lying about reading that, then was she just doing it because she's part of a circle that's like, you got to read this book and it's all this and blah blah blah, and so she just didn't do her own homework. She made up that she was taking the full day off to really understand this case in the book. She was just being a shill to promote this point of view.
And that's the best case scenario, right? Like the fact that she's just lying and a poser, right, is the best case scenario. The worst case scenario would be she actually believes the United States is nothing but black plunder. And that's, I think, actually the truth. But fascinating, number one, she should absolutely be prepared for this. She should know that tweet is coming. How do you go into a congressional hearing and not know that they're going to bring up that tweet?
Wait. Let's be fair to her. Almost everything she said has been crazy, bat crap nuts. So, I mean, can I narrow it down to which ones he's going to bring up?
Yeah, and there is an element of this, right? Like if I went back, Glenn, and we did a fake congressional hearing where I was a congressman and you were giving testimony, and I said, "Hey, Glenn, do you remember tweeting this?" I'm sure I could find a tweet that you don't remember tweeting. I'm sure I could find even a topic, maybe even a show. Like, hey, Glenn, you said you were watching this show. Do you remember that? And you go, oh, gosh, I don't think so. And I'd be like, actually, you tweeted it in 2018. Like, 100% could happen, right?
Yes.
However, what you wouldn't find in there is, something that completely disagreed with your entire philosophy of life. right?
Right.
Like if you went back and said, Stu, I'm looking back at your tweets. Why did you tweet in 2019 that you love the Dallas Cowboys? That wouldn't happen, right? I would certainly know that I tweeted something like that because it's actually more evil than claiming the entire country is a bunch of white supremacists. So,
And I agree with you. And let me add one more thing on the statement that my views have evolved. The wrong question was asked by the senator. Really? How? Why? What changed your mind?
Yeah.
Because you've been tweeting this forever, and you're still against Trump and everything that he's doing. I haven't seen any change of anything. What's changed your mind that make you now say that America is not just based on white supremacy?
it's the most interesting part of the story. The transition story is the story,
Yep.
right? Like, walk me through the moment you realize, good God, why was I saying all those terrible things?
Correct.
Yeah,
That's the question that these guys have to ask. Wow. You know what? We all change. Tell me about that moment when you realized you were on the wrong track.
And by the way, I think Brandon Gill did a very good job in this hearing. But
I know. But
it is a fundamental problem of these hearings that most of these guys, and I'm not saying him, but most of these guys are up there to just say their thing and not actually listen to the answers.
No, he's not.
He is listening, and he does want to know.
Yeah.
But time is limited and everything else. I would have loved to hear that answer to that question because whoever the next congressman up should have followed up with that. But
can we play the rest
there's
of it?
more. Yeah, it's worth it.
Yeah, go ahead.
No doubt that your tweet there is correct, but I don't recall that.
Okay. Do you believe that white people inherently feel superior to other races?
I do not.
You don't. You tweeted something to that effect. You said, I grew up feeling superior. How white of me. Why did you tweet that?
I think I was probably reflecting on what it was to grow up in an environment where I had lots of advantages.
It sounds like you're saying that white people feel superior.
I don't believe that anybody feels that way, sir. I was just reflecting on my own experiences.
Do you think that white people should pay reparations?
I have never said that, sir.
Yes, you did. You said it in January of 2020. You tweeted, yes, the North, yes, all of us, yes, America, yes, our original collective sin and unpaid debt, yes, reparations, yes, on this day.
I don't believe that was a reference to fiscal reparations, sir.
What kind of reparations was it a reference to?
I think it was just a reference to the idea that we all owe much to the people who came before us.
That's a bizarre way to frame what you tweeted. Okay.
I mean, that's obviously just nonsensical thing.
So funny.
Justification for what she actually said.
And that's why she should not be at NPR, and NPR should not be there. If that company is being run by this woman, and people in NPR aren't saying, okay, come on, the whole thing needs to be abolished. They're obviously not telling the truth. I don't have a problem with you if you're a lefty and you're just telling the truth and you're like, no, I do believe that. I have more respect for you for saying that than I do her and making up all kinds of stuff because the temperature of the room has changed. Have the balls to say what you believe. Have the balls to stand up for what you actually believe and want to do. That is a revolutionary. That is a wolf in sheep's clothing, and we keep seeing the wolf, but it's because the sheep skin just keeps slipping a little bit, and you're like, wow, gee, Grandma, you have mighty big teeth. Yeah, NPR should be abolished, and you should start with just firing her.